This is a story about learning how to silence the noise inside your head and discover the peace that already lives within you. Our title today is simple but powerful. Empty your mind. A story to silence inner chaos. Once upon a time, in a small town near a river, there lived a young man named Ethan. Ethan was smart, curious, and full of ideas. But his biggest problem was that his mind never stopped talking. Every morning when he woke up, his head was full of thoughts. What if I fail my exam? What if people laugh at me? What if I am not good enough? These thoughts followed him like shadows. One day, Ethan sat under an old oak tree near the river. His shoulders were heavy and his eyes looked tired. He whispered to himself, "Why can't I just be calm? Why is my mind always shouting at me?" Just then, an old traveler walked by. He carried only a small bag, wore simple clothes, and had a peaceful smile on his face. The traveler stopped and asked, "Young man, why do you look so troubled?" Ethan sighed. "My mind never stops. I try to study, I try to sleep, I try to be happy, but the noise inside never ends." The traveler chuckled softly and sat beside him. "Would you like to know the secret to silencing inner chaos?" Ethan nodded quickly. "Yes, please." The traveler pulled out a small clay cup from his bag. He filled it with water from the river and handed it to Ethan. "Look at this cup," the traveler said. "What do you see?" Ethan looked carefully. "I see clear water," he replied. The traveler smiled. "Now watch." He took a stick and stirred the water, mixing in mud and leaves from the riverbank. The water turned dark and dirty. "Now what do you see?" he asked. Ethan frowned. "It's full of dirt. I can't see through it anymore." The traveler placed the cup on the ground. "Now let's wait." They both sat quietly. Slowly, the dirt began to settle at the bottom of the cup, and the water became clear again. The traveler pointed at it and said, "This is your mind. When you stir it with constant thoughts, it becomes cloudy and restless. But if you let it be still, if you stop stirring, the dirt settles, and clarity returns." Ethan's eyes widened. "So you mean my mind is noisy because I keep stirring it with fear and worry?" The traveler nodded. "Exactly. You cannot stop thoughts by fighting them, but you can let them settle by being still." Ethan was curious. "But how do I do that? How do I stop stirring?" The traveler closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "Start with silence. Sit under this tree every day. Close your eyes. Focus on your breathing. Don't chase your thoughts. Don't fight them. Just let them pass, like clouds in the sky." Ethan tried it right there. He closed his eyes. At first, his thoughts rushed in like a storm. "What if I'm wasting my time? What if this doesn't work?" But he remembered the cup of water and imagined his thoughts settling like dirt. After a few minutes, he opened his eyes and smiled. "It's not perfect, but I feel lighter." The traveler nodded. "Good. Remember, it takes time. Just as the river doesn't clear in one moment, your mind won't either. But with patience, the noise will fade." From that day forward, Ethan practiced sitting under the tree every morning. At first it was hard. His mind wanted to run and shout, but little by little he noticed changes. His fears grew smaller. His confidence grew stronger. He could study better, sleep better, and even laugh more freely. One afternoon, Ethan's friend, Lily, asked him, "You look different these days. You seem calmer. What happened?" Ethan smiled and replied, "I learned how to empty my mind." She tilted her head. "Empty your mind? Doesn't that sound strange?" Ethan laughed. "It sounds strange, but it works. When my mind is full of noise, I cannot hear my own heart. But when I let go of the noise, I can see clearly." Lily was curious. "Can you teach me?" Ethan thought of the old traveler and the muddy cup. He nodded. "Yes, let's start with silence. Come with me tomorrow morning." The next morning, both Ethan and Lily sat under the oak tree. They closed their eyes, breathed deeply, and waited. At first, Lily giggled. "This feels silly." But Ethan said, "Shh, just wait. Let the dirt settle." Slowly, she grew quiet. And for the first time in a long while, she felt a small pocket of peace inside her chest. Days turned into weeks, and soon, more of their friends joined them under the oak tree. What started with one restless young man became a small circle of calm seekers. The river flowed, the wind whispered through the leaves, and each morning they emptied their minds together. And Ethan realized something beautiful. Sometimes, the best way to help yourself is to help others find peace too. The old traveler never returned, but his lesson lived on in the small town by the river. Ethan no longer feared his thoughts. He understood that chaos was only temporary. With stillness, peace would always return. The moral of the story is simple. When life feels too heavy, don't keep stirring your mind with worry and fear. Be still, empty your mind. In silence you will find strength. The weeks passed, and Ethan's quiet circle under the oak tree grew larger. More people from the town came to join. Some came because they were stressed about work, others because they were tired of constant worry, and a few just wanted to try something new. Soon, the oak tree became a place of peace for the whole town. One day, Ethan's old teacher, Mr. Clark, visited the circle. He had always been a strict man, known for his serious face and tough lessons. But that day he looked different. His eyes carried a hidden sadness. He sat down and said, "Ethan, I hear you've found a way to silence the noise inside. Can an old man like me still learn?" Ethan smiled gently. "Of course, sir. The mind doesn't care about age. Everyone can find peace." Mr. Clark closed his eyes and tried to follow Ethan's guidance. For the first few minutes his hands shook. He opened his eyes and said, "This is hard. My thoughts are racing." Ethan nodded. "Yes, at first it feels impossible. But think of the muddy cup. Let the dirt settle. Give it time." The teacher tried again. This time he lasted a little longer before opening his eyes. A small tear rolled down his cheek. "I never realized how loud my mind was until I sat still." Ethan placed a hand on his shoulder. "That is the first step. Awareness is the key." Over the next days, Mr. Clark kept coming back. His students noticed the change. He was still strict, but now his words carried kindness. He encouraged instead of scolding. The classroom, once filled with tension, became brighter. Ethan saw that even the hardest hearts could soften when given peace. But not everyone understood. One evening, a man named Henry approached Ethan angrily. "You're wasting people's time. Sitting under a tree won't solve their problems. Work solves problems. Money solves problems. This is foolishness." Ethan listened calmly. He didn't argue. He simply said, "Henry, when your mind is restless, even money feels empty. When your mind is clear, even small things bring joy. Would you like to try it once?" Henry shook his head and left. For days he mocked the group, calling them dreamers. But one night he couldn't sleep. His worries about debt and business kept him awake. Remembering Ethan's calm face, he finally returned to the oak tree. He didn't tell anyone, but he sat in the back, closed his eyes, and breathed. To his surprise, he slept peacefully that night for the first time in years. Slowly, even Henry began to change. Ethan realized that peace spreads quietly, like the ripples in the river. You cannot force people to accept it, but when they are ready, they come to drink from it themselves. One morning, as the sun rose and the river sparkled, Ethan whispered to himself, "The old traveler gave me one cup of wisdom, and now it has watered the whole town." He felt grateful but also humble, knowing that he was just a messenger. Years passed, and Ethan became known as the listener of the oak tree. People came not only from his town, but from nearby villages to sit in silence with him. They brought their worries, their fears, and their restless minds. And under the shade of the great oak, they learned how to empty their minds and find peace. One evening, a child asked Ethan, "Why do we need to empty our minds? Why not just keep filling them with more good things?" Ethan smiled and picked up a small stone from the ground. He placed it in a cup already full of water, and the water spilled over. "See, a full cup cannot hold anything more. To welcome new ideas, new peace, and new joy, we must first create space." The child nodded thoughtfully, and Ethan realized the lesson was now passing to the next generation. And so, the story comes full circle. A restless young man, a wise traveler, a muddy cup of water, and a tree by the river that became a temple of peace. The lesson is timeless. Your mind is like water. Stir it and it becomes cloudy. Let it be still and clarity returns. The moral is simple but powerful. Do not fight your thoughts. Do not fear them. Instead, let them settle. Empty your mind, and in the silence, you will find your strength.